Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Flight Path. It's been a little while, so it's good to see you all again. Welcome back to the show. As a quick reminder, this is the podcast where we spend anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes kind of talking about what happened in the world of Tern, product updates, what's been going on behind the scenes. I am one of your three hosts, David, CEO and co-founder, joined as always by Brad, our head of design, and Molly, our head of product. And we are coming off of what was an incredible week for Tern. We just had our last webinar of 2025. And we always sort of talk about how there's this post-webinar hangover where it's like we just sprint for so long towards this big event. It all comes together, literally with minutes to spare. We get through it, and then the next day it's just like, did I just get hit by a bus? So we're here. We're going to try and bring the energy, and we'll start as always with a little bit of a week in review. Before I do that, if you haven't already, click on like, click on subscribe, and you just want to start off with a quick thank you to this community. I mean, we were seeing some of the stats. People were sharing their Spotify Wrapped, and I spent 32 hours plus listening to Tern this year. We're in the top 10% of video podcasts, which I'm like, you can watch video podcasts on Spotify. It's just really incredible. So thank you for spending countless hours with us. Thank you for being such an amazing part of the community. I think we just have to start off with that. We do not take that for granted. It is incredibly special that you all tune in. So thank you for that. And with that, we'll kick off with the week in review. Brad, we're starting on your side. How are you?
I am alive. I am here. No, I mean, last night was so much fun. The webinar was so exciting to just see all the pieces come together. I think we talk about this often, but coming from just being in the weeds, did this specific task get done? Did the engineers build this thing? Did we write this help center article? Did we talk to one of our many supplier partners about this specific detail that we're going to announce in the webinar? I think this, from my perspective and the team I've worked with for these features, felt the most chaotic. There were just the most moving parts and pieces we've ever had trying to get something over the line for the webinar, and seeing you actually being able to go through the flow and actually book something live on the webinar. I was just like, whoa, it actually worked. It's really working. And I don't know. I get chills still a little bit when I see how people are going to use this. And I think people's faces are wait, I don't have to do that whole part of my workflow. I don't have to do anymore. It's almost unbelievable. And so I'm still in this kind of just processing it all, but I'm really excited for people to start using all the things we announced and see how it goes.
My favorite part of that whole thing was when David showed his Brex bank account just to prove that the charge had already happened.
I know. That was I was honestly, this is actually the highest stakes part of the whole demo. How do I show a bank account without showing anything that you shouldn't be showing? And
was it necessary? Probably not.
But... Definitely not. No, I just needed the adrenaline at that point in the webinar. Molly, what are your reflections from the week?
Oh, man, similar. I always come off of these webinars just, exhausted, but just blown away by the community. What other companies' webinars would you see the chat like that? It's absurd, and it's just so wonderful for all of you to show up and give that much support and kind of show how much you care. I know we've talked about this before, but all of our engineers and designers and product managers who built these features are literally on the Zoom, and getting to see in real time what they put their blood, sweat, and tears into building, the impact on that. And some of the really hilarious, wonderful chats, it literally makes their entire year. It's just so, and you don't have to do that, it's just so, I just am always so blown away and grateful for all of you after those webinars. And I'm also feeling really proud of my team. It was basically not involved in a large portion of the features that we got to show off and demo. David Tilley, product lead on my team, Jade Path, the product lead on my team, were responsible for so much of it. And down to the smallest details and polish, it was just the craft involved and the details and the testing and it all just came together. It was beautiful. It worked so well. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm feeling really proud of the team for everything they pulled off. All the engineers, designers, I couldn't name everyone, but just, I don't know. I'm a loopy, grateful person right now.
That sums it up so well. I think it is. These webinars are always, that one was so special. We talked a lot about the new era for Tern, but it is pretty wild when you think about it, that for the first time in our history, we actually facilitated a real booking, which is pretty crazy. And again, just the beginning, we'll talk more about that later in the kind of podcast and sort of the vision where we want to take that. But that was incredible. And it did feel different. It was just really interesting how it was so many, Brad mentioned, of these kind of third party partnerships. We were not exclusively in control of everything that needed to happen for this webinar. You'll give Alicia a shout out, like wrangling all these things, like, can this person be in the press release? Can that be in the press release? Like, where's everything out with the contract? What's the language we have to use? Like talking to insurance lawyers, talking to all these different like moving parts, and to see it come together literally like with hours to spare in some cases was just truly incredible. And the engineering team and the whole R&D org, you're seeing code being pushed at like 1:30 a.m. in preparation for like, I got to get this over the line so people can start to use it as soon as we show it. And it is so rewarding, like Molly said, to see the chats. And I think that's one of my favorite parts is like, we get done with the like high energy walkthrough. We do kind of a team recap and I just like take a breath and then I scroll through Slack because we have this like kind of channel where the whole team who's not in the webinar, we have like our own like emergency Slack that Brad, Molly, and I are basically looking at and nothing else. But then there's a team Slack channel where literally they're like screenshotting the comments and like, look at what they said about this feature that I built. Like, look what they said about the photo libraries. Like people are literally crying. And so it is incredibly motivating. And it's like one of those like sort of victory laps where it's like, hey, the thing that I actually spent so many hours on over the past couple of weeks actually mattered. And now watching the graphs, right? Number of photos you all are uploading, like it's really cool. So we are feeling, I think the way you said it, Molly, is like grateful but tired or loopy, like that's it. And that's where we're at. So that's the energy we're bringing to the podcast today. We're going to try not to do a sort of full deep dive in everything we talked about on the webinar. We'll give, in case you haven't seen it, it is on our YouTube page, so you can go and watch the whole thing. I definitely encourage you to do it. I think it was one of our better webinars that we've had. But we'll do a very quick summary, and then for each of the things, we'll try and give you a little bit more of like a behind the scenes or like what surprised us even in the past kind of 12 hours, like that type of thing on what's been happening.
That was me doing a peek behind the curtain mime.
I was gonna say, are you like, it looks like you were like doing a slit your throat thing at first. I was like, what? I was like, is this a killing clicks? I was like, not sure.
What you take me for? My brand has nothing to do with that. Like,
That's good. Okay. I mean, to be fair, the first topic we're going to get into is faster trip planning with a knife emoji next to the...
Okay, I put the knife emoji because it was killing clicks, I guess. Okay, fair feedback.
Okay. So, I mean, let's jump into that, I guess. Like what, peek behind the curtain. You could do both hands. That might help clarify the graphic.
Yeah, but when I open a curtain, it's with one hand. I don't go like this.
No, you
What
need
if the curtain...
We're really divulging, but you need to like, it's the morning, I'm like blasting open the curtains to let in the sun. You know?
The hotel curtain that's like a full, so it's like you're doing it from one side. But let's talk about faster trip planning.
Just real quick, let us know in the comments how you open a curtain. Okay, now we can go on.
Okay, yikes, you guys. All right, so yeah, I mean, faster trip planning, I think there was a fun little like extra surprise. We talked about this last time, but there was like a fun canny post about we could kill 1,000 clicks if we made it easier to swap days around. And it was one like I didn't want to distract the team from the webinar, so I actually just like tried to see what Cursor could do with it. And it's always fun when you use like an AI coding tool and it just makes what you have in your head more concrete. So like I gave it some criteria, gave it some of the edge cases I was worried about, and then like pulled it up in my local development environment and played around with it. And it was like actually working pretty well with, very limited amount of my time. And so I was like, wait, could we actually ship this before the webinar and have it be like this fun little extra icing surprise? And my husband, Zach, an engineer on the team, took a look and I think he refactored a fair amount of the code itself, but it was fun. Like we didn't need designs. We didn't need like a whole like spec and PRD. It was just kind of like handed over to engineering and we got it done. And I think it makes sense why people wanted it, right? If you have like 12 activities on one day and 12 on another, trying to like manually move them back and forth. If your client wants a swap in the itinerary, it just takes a lot of time. So that was a really fun one. A little surprise that I don't think people saw coming. And then the majority of it was around AI assist improvements and then photos, which we'll talk about separately. I think the thing that was like hard to bring to life with the webinar update for AI Assist is just how much of the work we've done is behind the scenes. We have Jack and Spencer, who are two of our just like brilliant engineers who have been kind of like up on the latest frameworks and, technology with AI. I mean, it changes every month, right? It like moves so quickly. And they've just invested a lot of time making our architecture more flexible and align better with kind of our vision coming in the next, 6 months, which I know we've talked a lot about, but things like chat, things like being able to use your library content, things like being able to, when you import, match on cruises. So they've just done so much of that behind the scenes work that will really kind of pay off in the coming months when you see more and more momentum around improvements to AI Assist. We want it to be kind of your true trip building assistant where it can really do anything you need. It can interact, it can ask clarifying questions, like it can save you tons of time. But then it was really fun to highlight the things that we had ready so far too, like you demoing it, selecting Giada properties, and then like there's media out of the box without you having to do anything for those hotels that you tried to import and create was pretty magical. So.
I think that just to like double down on some of that, I mean, I know podcast listeners like to geek out sometimes about the like AI stuff. Like I was talking to Jack Spencer, and this is so new, where like a lot of these frameworks are like being pioneered at the same time. And so we like had to rip one out, put a new one in, and like that's still evolving. So we're actually like helping contribute to some of this like open source updates. Like it's like pretty wild to see just like the infrastructure on this. But one of the things that we did as a part of this was we were using the 4.0 model of kind of a family of models behind the scenes, which if you use ChatGPTs, you used to have like the ability to select between all these different models. So we were using 4.0 and 4.0 mini. We've now migrated that to 5.1. And that was a big sort of like brain update for the AI that's really helped around summarization, longer itineraries, like, and then building into that sort of a custom set of kind of agentic workflows where we now can start to say, okay, if you get something that looks like a hotel, let's try and look that hotel up in this other database that doesn't use AI at all, other than to match it and to then update it into this thing. So to Molly's point, it's going to be really exciting to now that we have this sort of foundation, start to rethink all the different ways that you interact with it and all the different types of content that we can start to plug into it. So fun things ahead. Mentioned photos. I think these two things will come together probably in 2026, AI and photos, but we did a lot of really cool things that focus on bringing itineraries to life to help make photo management better. Do you want to summarize that, Brad? And we can kind of talk about some of the interesting things there.
Yeah, I mean, the summary is that you can now upload your own photo library into Tern and use it anywhere that you need to add photos on a trip, which is honestly like the funny thing. When this feature request first came up, I was like, why do people need this? Like, you can already put photos on itinerary templates and like activity templates, and like, isn't that good enough? And
yeah, you did talk me out of that initially.
yeah, and I couldn't have been more wrong, right? Like, I think when you actually like dig into it with advisors, like, sure, I could put that on a template, but like that's just not the workflow. Like, we might have like multiple templates, or we need to pull this, or like, I don't know, just an example. It's like I have branded like avatars I like to use for flights. Like, I'm not going to create a template for each flight. I just pull a flight in, add the smart flights, and then I just want to like grab this like quick graphic that I pull in. Like, that's like super easy to do now because you can just organize your own photos in the library. You don't have to like jam them into other templates and always remember to pull in a template. And so that, I don't know, like if you were on the webinar, you saw the chat just explode. People were like, I think first we like talked about the like upgraded photo library, which people are already like, oh my gosh, that was better. And they're like, wait, my own? I can do my own? And so, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but also game-changing.
The thing I think, so in our 2030 vision webinar, one of the things we talked about is how your sort of experiences and your relationships are your intellectual property. And when I think about photos, right, it's like really one of the primary ways that you document these experiences that you're having as you go on fam trips, as you do site visits, as you kind of go to these different conferences, right? You like literally when we were on our cruise, right? Like travel advisors are taking pictures of all their rooms. They're taking pictures of Scarlet Night. They're taking pictures of all of this through the lens of like, I want to be able to tell this story to my client, not just through the like, hey, here's the pictures from the brand, which are sort of perfect and like the best case scenario, but here's like what I actually saw. And by communicating that to your clients, it's like, oh, this person is making a great recommendation. They actually know, they've been there. Obviously, you can't visit every single place that you go, right? But like when you have, it's just such a powerful story to tell your customers and just builds that trust in a way that is really valuable. And so I think that's what I'm so excited about with the photo libraries. It lets you sort of load in this kind of intellectual property in your business in a way that like is now usable and that you can start to add it. I say like one of the things I think that stuck out in the chat, right, was like immediately people asking a lot of questions around like photo licensing and these different things and like how does this all work? And I'll say that in some ways this hasn't actually changed at all. The terms and conditions of Tern have basically always said that users are not allowed to upload media that they do not have a license or permission to use, which every website in the world has basically that same carve out. The same is true with the photo library. If you don't have permission to use content or permission to access content, you should not be uploading that into Tern and you should not be using it. There's business judgment in there, right, around the people are comfortable at different levels of what does license mean. And obviously that's up to each business owner to make a decision on there. But our terms and conditions state that like if you don't have permission to use the media, you can't upload that to Tern. It's not your right to do so. The interesting thing, and so I really think about this feature as being designed to take that media that you've created, that you've captured, and upload that to the Tern platform. If you've taken the photo, you are the copyright owner, you own that media, and you can do whatever you want with it. And that includes uploading it to Tern. It also includes sharing that with the Tern community. And so if you choose to share that photo with the Tern community, you are essentially granting the license to the Tern community to use that within the Tern platform. So being able to say like, okay, you're going to add that to an itinerary, add it to media, those types. And so we would say if you don't want to let other people use that photo, do not share it with the community. If you want to let your agency use the photo, but not anybody else, share it with your agency or with your community that you created. And if you want to keep it private, right? So those are sort of the different ways we built this sharing and this permission in. We tried to make it really clear in the app with language that indicates that. But if you have questions on how the app works, we're happy to answer that. We generally can't provide legal guidance or licensing recommendations for what every single photo in the world falls under. But we have taken industry best practices. We're part of the safe harbor under DMCA, where if there is a copyright holder that does have a concern about their media being used inappropriately, that we have a process where we can work with them to take that down and contact the kind of person. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do to help with that. So obviously very top of mind, something that we think a lot about. We'll continue to kind of get feedback on it. But I think about the photo library really is sort of that best in class for those media that you've got a license for. Maybe you got it through other third-party websites and you have the license to use it, or photos that you've taken. The new media library, which I'll talk about here in a second, is great for finding a licensed photo. And you'll actually see us be really thoughtful about this even in the community. So sourced a bunch of photos and like they're all labeled like sourced by Pexels, which is a third-party kind of royalty-free image library, but they have a requirement that if you're sharing it in this type of media, you reference where it came from. And so you'll see that in the image title. So there's things like that. Again, photo licensing, copyright is complex, it's messy, it's confusing. So this is not meant to be a legal primer on that, but hopefully helpful as people have a lot of questions on that. So Molly, do you want to talk about the best way to find royalty-free photos, which is our new photo integration?
Yeah, we moved to Unsplash for a better, just like out of the box photo library. So if you have an activity or an itinerary and you just don't happen to have, your own photo, you're looking for a quick, high quality photo. We used to use a different provider and we got a lot of negative feedback with good reason about that. And so we've upgraded it. It's really just so much better. We were looking at all these like before, after examples of common searches. And it's one of those things of like, I wish we had done this 2 years ago. Like it's just so much better. So that was really fun to do. And really with that combination of your own photos and a better like out of the box library, it's just 10 times easier to build beautiful itineraries. Like I actually personally experience this whenever I'm doing a big demo or, anything like that. Trying to make my trips look beautiful used to be so hard. And now it's just so much easier. I was like having to like Google. Yeah, it was just too much work before. So that should go a really long way. The other thing that's just cool is when you think about some of these AI improvements that we're making, there's so much more we can do than like you having to manually select the right photos for any given situation. Especially like we're letting you add the supplier and the location when you're uploading photos. We have that information for a lot of our out of the box libraries. And you can imagine like you're importing a trip from a DMC, a supplier that doesn't have photos, or you're using AI Assist to craft a trip, or you're even just like dragging in an activity and putting in certain information. We'll start to actually know enough information to automatically add relevant photos from your content that will make it look beautiful or suggest, or however we end up, doing that. And I don't know, it's like a really good foundation of content to make things easier and easier and easier to have those beautiful trips with very little work.
And we know that sort of maybe the organization will take a little bit of like lift up front. I think the team's done an incredible job making that really efficient, but like organizing things takes time. And I will just say that like those AI tools will benefit the people that add the most metadata up front, right? So if you add like good titles, like if you add locations, if there's like a hotel, right? These photos are all part of a hotel, tag the hotel in the Google Places and like make sure your titles are sort of useful. You'll get a lot more value of some of those future features. So again, like that's why we added those tagging features from the beginning, because we knew that that would provide the context necessary to really automate things in the future for you.
We even had a beta tester like mock up what he would want AI to do with his photos. And we're like, wait, should we just hire him?
So tons happening with photos. With the other big kind of milestone of the webinar was, as we talked about at the beginning, sort of this like actual new era of actual booking things in Tern, right? So Brad, maybe I'll have you sort of like summarize that and kind of for folks that haven't watched the webinar yet, and find it on your YouTube page. You'll want to see these live, but what was that?
Yeah, I actually think it's funny hearing you say like booking things in Tern, because I think it completely undersells the like, it's like half of the feature. I think what does exist in the industry already is this idea of like, oh, there's like booking aggregators where I can go to a portal and I can book something. And that takes like the advisor is doing that, right? They're copying all of the traveler's information and their credit card details. And then the advisor has to go along and make a booking. We explicitly did not build that in Tern, right? We didn't want to just like replicate this whole like, oh, I have to like, once my client says, okay, I have to go type all their information in again and put all their credit card details in, and then I've made the booking. It's like, no. You shouldn't have to do that. Like, there's just no reason you should have to do that when you have a tech platform that's actually integrated into the ecosystem, where instead, when your clients say like, yeah, I want to book that, here's my credit card details, we're like, cool, it's booked. Like, we just took care of that for you. You don't got to go take any time. Like your job shouldn't be copying and pasting information into a portal to like officially make a booking. Like you are already doing all this work to facilitate the sale of that hotel, whatever it might be. You can get it all set up, but like you don't need to like do that manual work to actually book it. And that's really like the foundations we introduced yesterday with both Project Expedition and what we're doing with insurance, which is like you can browse things, you can get them set up in Tern and like proposed for your client. And then your work kind of stops there as far as like what you need to do to actually like make that thing be booked with the supplier. Once your client authorizes their payment and approves it, you're done. And it's almost like too good to be true. Like I feel like advisors are still going to be like clicking into every Project Expedition booking. You're like, did it really get booked? Are we sure it got booked? But like, I think it's just, I'm just like projecting forward a few years from now where advisors just like aren't logging into booking portals. It's just, I don't know, it's a wild thing to think about when your job is just, you have so much more time because you're not doing all this manual work all the time. And I'm so excited about it. I'm probably not doing the best selling it there, but
I think that was great. I think like so it's been interesting. Like not only did we webinar this week, but Monday, Tuesday this week, we also had our leadership team offsite. We actually had somebody dial in who spends a lot of time thinking about what is people, what are like, whether it's insurance sales or travel advisors, these different things, how will they be impacted by AI? Yeah, I thought that was really compelling. Like the research is like, as people have more choices, the need for guidance from a trusted advisor actually goes up. And so there's like all this research that sort of says, even with AI, even with all these kind of automations, travel is a decision paralysis problem, right? It's like, where should I even go? There's this whole body of research around like humans are really good at nudging humans to make decisions or to decide to do something. For a lot of you who do groups, right? Good example of this, right? Like I wasn't thinking about going on this trip, but then I saw that, some of my friends or somebody I know or my travel advisors organizing this group. And yeah, of course I want to go on a Christmas market cruise, right? And so you've actually catalyzed demand for travel. If you think about, there's lots of examples of that. All these things kind of come together to the future that we see, which is, to Brad's point, you shouldn't be spending 60% of your time on admin of booking. Admin of booking is not actually where you add the most value to this industry. It's being able to catalyze demand by helping with marketing, with promoting, by building relationships across the community. That's a huge value add. It's being able to build trust and start to say like, hey, I know the beach is the most important thing for you. In Mexico during these dates, you're going to have a major sargassum problem. I wouldn't recommend going there, right? Like the photos might look great on the website. Everyone's going to say that, but like, I actually know what's important to you and I can provide trusted advice. This is the hotel I'd recommend for you. And it's like, that's going to drive trust and conversion. The actual process of manually typing things into a website adds no value to your clients other than like, it has to be done. And so this is why I get so excited about this future, is that the booking is such a massive source of admin that if we free that up, it's going to allow you as an advisor to focus on these things that really matter, crafting the experience, making those recommendations, like catalyzing the demand. And then the booking just happens, the payment gets made. You're not worried about chasing lost commissions because you mistyped something, like all that whole thing. There's so many downstream problems just go away in this world. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be incredibly exciting to see that future. And like Brad said, like this is the first step there. We had 2 providers so far. We'll have like 6 or 7 sort of by the end of Q1. And that's mostly like insurance and project acquisition. It's going to be a long road. I mean, you see this already in the chat. Like, what about this supplier? What about this supplier? Like, I'm getting emails now. And it's like, we love that. But it will take years really to recognize that vision. But recognize that vision, we will. And I think it's going to be great.
And the more you can ask them to integrate with us, the more that will help us, because, it's one thing for us to reach out and say, hey, we'd love to integrate with you. It's another for them to get 10 pings from some of their top producers being like, have you heard of Tern? You should integrate with Tern. I would love to book you, so that's an ask that we kind of always have with some of these integrations as well.
I would also throw out there, like, if you haven't used Project Expedition before, if you're like, oh, I'm used to working with this other tour provider, don't wait for that other provider. Like, at least try it in Tern. Get a feel for like, what might it be like if this was my workflow? One, it'll save you a ton of time. Project Expedition is great. They're highly trusted. Like, I think I would say relatively low risk there for giving them a try. But then like you can also speak to the whatever providers you love about like, hey, actually they have a better experience now. Like it's actually much easier for me to book this other thing. Like you all should get in here because you don't want to be missing out on.
Totally agree. And I'll maybe quickly before we wrap up on the agency side too, like there's been some comments in the Facebook group around like whether it's insurance or these other things, right, around like, oh, I saw one post that I responded to and they're like, I had a bad experience with one of these insurance providers. I'm surprised that Tern didn't like that, like past Tern's vetting stage, right? And I just kind of came back to that principle that we talked about many times in the webinar. Like we are driven by the demand of our users, right? So we, for all these insurance providers, looked at like, who are people actually using, right? Is there sustained business in Tern? Are they I'll call it good to work with, right? Are they willing to make changes as necessary to the API? Do they have good documentation? Are they willing to help kind of support the process of building this type of feature? All those things really do matter. And that's how we thought about prioritizing it. Experts in the claims process of every insurance company. And there's so much noise, right? Like 10 people have a great experience, one person has a bad experience. Like, who do we listen to, right? That's not our role to make decisions for your business. It's not our role to define for a host agency who they should be relating to. And so we do diligence to make sure that we're not partnering with somebody who's like clearly bad. We want to partner with the best people out there, but best is subjective and also like sort of defined by you. And so we think that is largely taken care of by looking at the demand and sort of filtering it from that perspective. But it's one of those reasons we think it is so important that you don't have a tech platform that's dictating to you who you have to work with. So that's why we'll have this idea of choice, right, across all these different verticals. And we'll have to sequence things and we have limited resources. So it doesn't mean that there's going to be every option right away. But to Brad's point, especially on the activities and tour side, like I have spent personally 3 years building a relationship with Project Acquisition and talking to dozens and dozens of people. Like we feel really, really good about them being the tour and activity provider for the short to medium term. Over time, we'll add more for sure. And then on the insurance side, this is like people have such strong opinions and preferences and experiences. And it's one of those things where like, it's pretty rare that people are always happy because if you're making a claim, something has gone horribly wrong and or at least marginally wrong. And so it's tough to filter through the noise. And so we're just saying like, we don't want to. It's up to you to decide you want to work with. All right, a couple more minutes left. Last big thing we talked about was the agency updates. Molly, you want to sort of summarize that?
Yeah, I mean, we made some like great improvements over the past couple of months. We've talked about all of them on the pod before. The big like new thing that we were showing real product screenshots of is our progress towards a better kind of host sub-agency model in Tern. This is something a lot of our existing agency partners are really excited about. And as we've said before, we've been talking to larger and larger hosts. I've been flying around the country to watch their accounting best practices, and we're excited. I think 2026 will be the year of the host joining Tern, which is so much fun, not only for, purchasing seats, but actually for reconciling commission and managing their teams. So it was really fun to get to preview that. Do you maybe want to talk about one of the hot button issues that came up?
Yeah, I think this was a bit of a surprise for both of us, right? Like, I mean, this was like so exciting. It's such a clear, like structural need in the industry. And then you sort of look over and it's like the chat's like, this sounds like an MLM tool. Like I can't be affiliated with anything that supports MLMs. And it was just like, what? Like, which I thought was interesting. So I'll maybe, yeah.
I have like a personal, like I didn't quite realize what a hot button issue that was. And I was reflecting back on some of the language I was using, and I could see why it triggered that, because like one of the things that we made sure to do was in our architecture, make it flexible to support as many layers as needed. Because as you'll speak to, David, like there are real legitimate cases for very legitimate agencies that have more than just 2 layers. And so we knew if we didn't support it for N number of layers, we'd have to then go back and like overhaul things again. And so from an architecture standpoint, it's flexible. I think some of the language I used almost like triggered people to be like, is this MLME? So
yeah, the layering,
I also like felt bad, and I apologize. Like that's just a personal reflection and something I'll be more careful about moving forward. But yeah, I'll pass it over to you.
I think like quickly, like the MLM thing, we largely look at it as like, do you make money by selling travel and actually think about that as your craft, or do you make money by trying to grow teams, right? And the thing is, like, if you're making money primarily by growing teams or recruiting people under you, the economics just don't make sense for you to subscribe to something like Tern, because the amount of travel that you have to sell for it to pay for itself is there, and it's not going to help you recruit more people necessarily. So we actually don't see that many MLME agents on the Tern platform, which sort of helps. Like we charge a premium, like we think that that's great, and it filters that out. The other thing though, I think that's important just to help educate people on the structure, I've had multiple conversations over the past week with very large hosts, like thousands and thousands of people. And both of them actually have like global presences. So they have like their company in the US, their company in, they would say Canada and some of these other markets. And so they have a parent company. They have 2 then geo companies. They then have underneath that, one of them's like purchased a host agency in the US. They have their own brand in the US. Then they allow each of those kind of most top producers to say like, yeah, I want to create my own agency and I want to start to train and bring on ICs underneath me. And so you can see there's already like 4 or 5 layers there that are sort of involved in different ways in the accounting and the commission. Sometimes it's a total commission pass through and it's just accounting, but like this is the hierarchy of the travel industry. And these are both incredibly well-respected brands that people in the industry would never say are MLME, but this is the corporate structure that allows them to deliver that value. And we have to support that. So I think there's definitely some learnings here in how we talk about it, but I think we wanted to give a little bit more context on the podcast around like, you may be in a very reputable host at one of those layers, and you're definitely not in an MLM, but you may just not be as aware of all the complexity that sits sort of in that chain to allow that volume to happen. We think it's going to be game changing. We think it's going to let us really be in the chat. There's a lot of names being thrown around. Like, I wish this host or this host would do that. Like, again, let them know because we're building for them. We're building for them, and this is a key part in making that happen. We are out of time for this week's podcast. Next week, we are going to be actually at our team retreat. This is something that's a bit of a tradition for us, where it's like we sprint so hard to the end of the year, and then we bring everybody in the company more or less together for sort of a celebration. And so we will have a limited kind of support coverage next week. Our Philippines team is going to be doing a separate retreat, so they'll still be online and kind of driving that value. Our team will be sort of checking in, but if you email us, things will be a little bit slower because we're going to be spending time on team building, planning, and that next week. So that will be great. It also means we won't be doing the podcast next week, but we're going to try and do a special episode at the last kind of week of the year before the holidays, just on like 2025 in review. So don't miss that. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, thank you for your partnership. It has been such a fun year. We'll reflect on that more later, but don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, let us know how you open curtains, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.